Hi guys, George here from Zero Period Productions, and today I'm giving you a sneak peek at Tales of Tribute, the new tavern game coming to the Elder Scrolls Online's High Isle expansion. Tales of Tribute is a first for ESO, a playable card game containing both a PvE questline as well as competitive PvP, including seasonal leaderboards and rewards for those going up against other players. But before we go any further, let me address the most common question I've gotten about Tales of Tribute. There are no pay-to-win aspects in this. All cards will be won through quests, adventures, and gameplay rewards. Nothing pertaining to the card game will be sold to you through the Crown Store or Crown Crates. That being said, Tales of Tribute is a feature of the new expansion, so you will need to buy High Isle in order to access it. To get started, find the Seeking New Members notice, posted around Gonfalon Bay, the expansion's new city. You'll be directed to speak with Bragas, a wood elf excited to introduce new players to the game. From there, you'll meet Razamad in the Gonfalon Gaming Hall, who gives a quick rundown on a couple of the game's mechanics. One thing to note is that in Tales of Tribute, both players bring two decks to the game, combining their decks to allow for a shared card pool, making for a more level playing field. Your tutorial match will be up against Bragas, who will lend you two of his own decks, and instructs you step by step through the first game. Let's break down the table and go over a bit of what we're looking at here. In the center of the screen, we have the Tavern, a series of shared cards that go up for grabs for either player. To their right, we have the four patron decks, which you can think of as suits from a traditional card game. Patron decks have their own abilities and bonuses, which we'll go into a little later. The fifth and central icon is the Treasury, and next to that is the Hourglass, with which you end your turn. Since it's your first time playing, you're allowed to go first. The round starts with both players drawing a total of 5 cards from their hand, and for this introductory game, you'll receive 5 gold cards, giving you a total of 5 gold pieces to start. Using gold, you can buy cards from the tavern, and upon purchasing them, that gold will be subtracted from your treasury, seen just below. You'll be instructed to buy the Reinforcements card for 3 gold, and the Portcullis card for your remaining 2. Both of these are part of the St. Pellin deck, as denoted by their red trim. Bought cards are put into your cooldown pile, as they can't be played the same turn that you purchase them. With no gold left and no cards to play, you click on the Hourglass to end your turn. There's 2 ways to win a game of Tales of Tribute, by gaining a total of 40 prestige points, or to have the favor of all 4 patrons at the same time. During your second turn, you're given more gold-giving cards, as well as a power-giving card. Power does not carry over into your next turn, so you either have to spend power during that round, or any unused power is converted over to prestige. Gold not spent during a round is lost, so you'll always start with 0 gold at the start of a turn. During this round, you're instructed to play the Duke of Crow's Patron, in which you'll gain power equal to the amount of gold paid, minus 1, and move that patron to a favored status. Since we have 4 gold this turn, buying the patron would give us 3 power, in addition to the 1 that we already have. Each patron has 3 states: favored, unfavored, and neutral. All 4 patrons start the game as neutral to both players, and by paying a patron's fee, you'll move them up 1 state. For instance, a neutral patron will become favored upon paying them, or an unfavored patron will become neutral again. When a patron favors you, they're unfavored towards your opponent, and the same goes for them with you. You'll want to keep an eye on this throughout the game, as your opponent will win automatically if they manage to gain the favor of all 4 patrons at the same time. Fortunately, there is a visual indicator to show a patron status. The little arrow will point towards the tavern when neutral, towards you when favored by you, and towards your opponent when unfavored. And while the Duke of Crow's favor can be bought with gold, other patrons have other requirements, such as sacrificing a card. At the end of your second hand, you'll have no cards left in your deck, at which point your cooldown pile will be shuffled and used as your personal deck again, including the 2 cards that we bought during our first round. Upon ending our turn with 4 power, this is converted into our first prestige. And since it's just our tutorial match, there's a lower prestige goal of 10, as opposed to the usual 40. In our third turn, we're given 2 gold cards, as well as 3 action cards, all of which come from the St. Pellin's deck. Looking at these cards, you'll notice a play effect, as well as combos. Combos are made by playing additional cards of the same patron suit in that turn. For instance, should we play the Reinforcements card, we gain 2 gold upon playing it. Then, we'd gain 2 power from playing a second St. Pellin's card, and another 1 power after that for playing a third. This will give us a total of 6 power this round, and by ending this turn, it will give us the 10 prestige points and a victory over Bragas. Following this short tutorial, we speak again to Master Razamad, who officially welcomes us into the Roysters Club, promising new opponents and decks that we can earn. By joining, you'll unlock the club rank, which serves as your progression system for Tales of Tribute. This kicks off the PvE-based questline for Tales, and will allow for you to not only find new cards in decks, but even upgrade some of your existing cards through puzzles, quests, and other adventures. The goal here was to create a card game that encourages players to explore more of the world, in order to get the very most out of the game. Now, this first match is a very basic look at some of what Tales of Tribute has to offer, as there's other card types not shown during your first game. During this starter match, we really only see action cards, but there's 2 other card types, agents and contracts. We also only saw the first 4 patrons out of the 8 in total that will ship with Tales of Tribute at launch. You'll immediately be given the 4 patron decks that we saw during that initial match: Duke of Crows, St. Pelin, Sigic Loremaster Celerus, and Grandmaster Delmine Hlalu. You'll also be told of an upcoming tournament, which will be unlocked for you upon raising your club level, and serves as your main questline for Tales of Tribute. Your club level will determine who you can challenge, ensuring that novices won't go up against masters from the get-go. This only pertains to NPCs, and as far as other players go, you can challenge any player at any time. And you can even use the player interaction menu to challenge them to a match the same way you might challenge a player to a duel. You do get reward coffers for playing against other players, but only when done so through matchmaking. This is to hopefully avoid people gaming the system, by playing against their friends and one person purposefully throwing the game to try and grind out victory coffers for the other player. Moving into our second match, we can talk a bit more about the other types of cards in game. Each player starts by choosing 2 of the available patron decks in order for the game to start. In addition to these, every match will always have the Treasury, a patron whose favor cannot be bought, but can be used any turn. Selecting the Treasury during your turn has you sacrifice a card and pay 2 gold, and in return you'll receive a new card called Writ of Coin, which when played gives 2 gold. A good strategy here is to sacrifice your standard gold cards for Writ of Coin, meaning that you can earn more gold each turn and buy better cards from the tavern. Doing this early on in a match proved really useful to me, so that I could buy more high value cards and stack my deck a bit more. During that tutorial match, combos were a little bit easier since we really only played with a couple suits, but with all 4 patrons in play, it definitely becomes a little bit trickier. During these matches, you'll start to make use of agent cards and contract cards. Agents have HP, which can be found at the bottom of their card, and when placed, remain on the field, and can be played each turn until your opponent removes them from the field by whittling down their HP through power points or by playing cards that allow for agents to be removed. Contract cards are a one-time use, and upon being played are removed from the match entirely, meaning that you won't see them go back into your hand or the common deck at all. There's also agent contracts, which when played will remain on the field and usually have extra powers and abilities. Another thing to note is that while there is a victory at 40 prestige, your opponent does get a chance to catch up and hit 40 in their next turn. Should they hit that requisite of 40 points in that turn, the game will continue until one player is able to achieve a higher score, without their opponent surpassing it on the next round. This continues until one person hits 80 points, at which time said player automatically wins. Upon completing your first match against another novice in the Roysters Club, you'll be introduced to the Daily Challenges system, which gives you a new daily quest to play against characters in specific cities for better rewards and progress on your club rank. This daily challenge will allow you to play up to 3 different matches. My first challenge took me to cities in Ebonheart Pact territory, playing in Stonefalls, Shadowfen, and Eastmarch. Should you win 1 match, you'll receive a bronze reward. At 2 wins, silver, and at 3, gold, which just boils down to getting an additional victory coffer from Rishka for each victory, up to the 3. This will hopefully serve as a bit of a faster way to level your club ranking, but I did notice that at certain points my ranking wouldn't continue to improve, even though I didn't have a higher set of players to go up against. And since it's on the playtest server, I figure it's just a minor progression glitch. A typical match of Tales of Tribute is expected to last around 15 minutes, although this may change if you're playing against another player, who may take a little bit more time than an NPC might. The game does have a 90-second limit per turn, that way a player opponent doesn't keep you waiting for 5-10 minutes at a time. You'll never lose cards or gold to your opponent, rather you'll always get a reward from the game's servers. Similar to battleground matches or match-made dungeons, you'll receive a rewards coffer in the mail upon completing a match, whether you win or lose. These rewards can include gold, crafting materials, upgrade materials, furnishing materials, motif pages, etc. In one of my first reward boxes, I received a clue for a card upgrade. The clue points us towards Cold Harbor, more specifically, in the first large cavern of the Wailing Maw Delve. There are several card upgrades that come from these clues, which can always be reread by checking your almanac in your inventory. Other upgrades come from achievements earned by playing Tales of Tribute. Once again, you'll only earn cards through gameplay, and never through the Crown Store at all. There's also no player-based gambling system in the game, but I'm sure people will set that up between themselves in order to create player-based tournaments. Something that has come up in conversation ever since Tales was announced as part of this year's expansion is if this is something players want. Personally, I really like the idea of getting another thing to do in ESO, in the form of a tavern-based minigame. Rich Lambert, the creative director for ESO, has said that he's wanted to add a tavern game for the longest time, and that he was super excited to finally have that chance. I know that I loved Gwent as a part of Witcher 3, and I really liked having poker, liar's dice, etc. in Red Dead. And in that same vein, I think Tales is a great addition to ESO. We already have Antiquities as a bit of a minigame, and when that system first came out with Greymoor, I poured a ton of time into it because it served as this great breath of fresh air for the game. I probably played 3 or 4 hours of Tales of Tribute for this video, and it's something fun to just chill out to. I would want to see the game expanded upon over time with new cards and even new patrons, the same way that Antiquities is added upon for each new expansion and DLC. One final thing to note is that everything you've seen here today has been recorded on the High Isle playtest server, meaning that this is not the final build of the expansion. So not everything we've seen today is finalized. There's different UI tweaks to be made, balancing, and finishing up QA testing for quests and such. Just something to keep in mind for this video, and any other videos I have before High Isle's release. The Elder Scrolls Online High Isle releases June 6th for PC, and June 21st on console. And if you'd like to see more ESO content, why not stop by my streams at twitch.tv/0periodproductions, where I stream ESO regularly. And stay tuned, because I have at least one other High Isle preview video coming soon. Thank you guys for watching. Bye bye.